Hi, Annalise here again, and welcome to Week 2 of English 201 Computing in the Humanities. This video will cover ephemerality, preservation, and using Evernote. The primary focus of this video will be looking at digital humanities projects, so looking at what they are, how to find them, and thinking critically about the permanence or impermanence of these digital objects. While last week we went over the definition of the digital humanities, to get an idea about what this field entails, this week we'll focus on DH projects. Because DH is something to experience as visual and interactive components are typically present, finding actual DH projects to interact with is often the best way to get acquainted with DH scholarship. DH projects can take many forms and use different methods and tools. Your other required video this week, How Did They Make That by Miriam Posner, does a terrific job of demonstrating how to break down DH into component parts of the sources, processes, and presentation of a DH project. For the sake of not being redundant, I won't elaborate too much on this concept, but if you haven't already, do watch Posner's video, it's great. But a takeaway here is that by encountering DH projects and learning how and why they're created, it allows you to form ideas about what DH is and what types of projects interest you. I really want to stress to keep in mind what types of projects spark your interests, as this will be especially helpful when creating your final project for this class. So an example we have here is the project Icardico from the Netherlands, which links cultural industries in the early modern Low Countries from 1475 to 1725. On the left is a paper about this project, and simply reading about the project makes it difficult to actually see the output and understand what exactly is accomplished by this project. However, when directly interacting with the site, we're able to answer some questions and truly experience what the developer of this project intended, which here, in this example of the project, which is places of birth of painters active in Amsterdam between 1678 and 1700, we're able to customize this map and see in real time the differences in percentage of places of birth in the different years here and in the different geographies. In terms of finding DH projects, the experience is a little different than what you may have found for searching for other academic material. Most academic material is behind a paywall, which means that if a resource is not available through a library, it's prohibitively expensive for individuals to purchase it. To find academic sources for your other classes, you may be searching library databases, the catalog, or even Google Scholar to find scholarly articles, books, and data. But DH projects won't actually be found there, due to both the issue of the irregular formats and software used in DH, as well as sort of the practicalities of how to provide access to this sort of data from behind a paywall. In addition to the fact that DH largely holds up the idea of being scholarship that is largely open to the public, DH projects are typically available for users on the open web. As such, searching on the web, so using Google or an equivalent search engine, is typically one of the best ways to find DH projects. So looking for these types of projects, often simply Googling, which you do in your day-to-day life, is a really good way to go about finding them. As you start to take a look at DH project sites, you'll likely notice that some links just don't seem to work. Even clicking on links for consolidated lists of projects can lead to error pages such as this. So, what can we take away from this? What does this mean? One major thing is the fact that the digital humanities, unlike a lot of traditional humanities work, needs additional funding and infrastructure to continue to be accessible to scholars and the general public. Whereas a physical book in the library will remain on the shelf at no cost, a digital project typically needs a domain and continued maintenance to remain accessible to users on the web. Both of these things require funding, which can be difficult to indefinitely sustain. Also, there is something called digital obsolescence, which is the situation where a digital resource is no longer available or readable because the format is no longer in use. An example of this is our lovely background here, which is that I used a floppy disk for my 4th grade social studies project on it and recently found it. While I have this physical disk, the information is effectively lost as I don't have any equipment that can read a floppy disk in my possession. The same can be said for digital file formats and software. If a digital humanities project is created and stored in file formats that no longer can be read, what happens? And what does this mean for both projects and the creators of this scholarship? And the last question I posit is, whose voices are then effectively silenced with the disappearance of their work? So we're often told that the internet is a place where it's impossible to fully delete our data. Whether it's an unfortunate photo still living on someone's Facebook account, or a text message that was screenshotted, it seems that our data will live on in perpetuity, whether we like it or not. However, it actually takes both funds and labor to preserve and store data. Therefore, in thinking about DH, we need to also consider how DH projects are preserved or not preserved. In that case, it exists as something that's ephemeral. So ephemeral being defined as something impermanent, transient, or fleeting. The Wayback Machine over here is essentially the archive of the web and is a means to track web pages that are no longer active and view a static archived version, almost like a reproduction of an original artwork. But a main problem here for DH and for digital art, as illustrated in the Benjamin Walker podcast posted in this week's listening section, Artifacts 1 and 2, is that a core component of a great deal of DH work is the interactivity itself. So without this interactivity, I ask you, is there something integral to the project that's lost? So how can we mitigate the fact that sometimes digital things may disappear for a myriad of reasons? Though we won't be creating fully fleshed DH projects in this class that will need a complete preservation plan, there are ways that we can start to be active with preserving the research we do and making it more accessible, even just for our own selves. So what exactly am I talking about here? I'm talking about tools that will allow you to take notes, manage citations for academic resources, and effectively create your own database of digital information you can later retrieve. Tools like this are especially helpful during research when you need to keep track of and organize a large number of resources. Examples of citation management tools include Zotero, an open source option, Mendeley, EndNote, and ReadQ Papers. However, many exist and many are free. So on to Evernote. Evernote is an example of note-taking software that's less concerned with compiling citations for papers and spitting out a bibliography, but it's more a means to keep track of everything you may need for your academic or personal projects, including notes, documents, images, videos, basically anything that resides on the web that can be clipped into your notebook for later. An effective way to think of tools such as Evernote is as if it's your personal database of everything you want to document or remember. Because it's fully searchable with tags and titles, and you can also search the text and images, Evernote is not only an efficient means to organize information, but also to effectively retrieve it or re-find it as well. So for the last part of this video, I'm going to do a short demo of Evernote to get you started with finding, saving, and organizing documented DH projects. So here we are on the Evernote homepage. You'll want to sign up for Evernote, similar to Hypothesis, and download the extension for your browser, which is located here. Evernote is offered on different platforms. You can download a desktop version for Windows or Mac, or the mobile version for iOS or Android. Personally, I use the web version most often, as I simply like the interface and the look. The features are essentially the same on each platform, and there are many in-depth tutorial videos that are available online if you want to see a tutorial on your preferred platform. So I've been using Evernote for over a year now, about 2 or 3 at this point, for both work and personal organization. So let's take a look at some of the basic features that you'll be using to bookmark and annotate DH projects online. So here I've logged in and you can see what Evernote looks like. The structure of Evernote is organized in a similar way to analog research. So you have bookmarks, written notes, and anything else you choose to save from the internet. These are saved as notes. These notes can then be organized thematically into different notebooks. So here I have all of my notes, and I've organized my notebooks into different themes. So I have some personal stuff like house stuff, job stuff, to-do lists, and then I also have digital humanities projects here. I also have projects from graduate school and all sorts of other stuff. So let's create a note and see how this works. So let's take a look at a specific DH project and make a note. So this is Chicana por mi raza. It is a project looking at the history of the Chicana rights movement during the Civil Rights era in the United States. I've already taken quite a deep dive into this project, and I know that oral history, digital archiving, and visualizations are some of the methods used in this project. I also know that some of the tech used is Timeline.js and StoryMap.js. So let's add this to our notebook. So here, let's clip to Evernote. So when we do this, we can clip the web page in different ways, as an article, bookmark, or screenshot. I typically just do the bookmark option as it takes up less storage, and I often want to go directly to the site itself to check out the original context. So I'm going to click bookmark. It's going to look like that. I'm going to add it to my English 201 Digital Humanities project, which is right there, but I could also add it to these other notebooks here. I also want to add tags so that I can re-find this project if I'm looking for the tech used or the different methods used. So when I'm searching for this note, I'll be able to find it when I'm looking for tags as these search terms. I'm going to add a few terms, so I'm going to do oral storytelling and StoryMap.js as 2 examples for search terms. Finally, for add remark, this is an easy space that you can add an annotation as you bookmark a page. Here, I'll ask that you write a 1 to 2 sentence description describing the project. Once we do this, we can go back to our Evernote page and see what it looks like. So, for example, I will say, this is a social justice project. Of course, I would want you to do something a little bit more in depth. So let's save. And now it's saved and we can view in Evernote. So here is our note. Here is my annotation. This is a social justice project. Here you can also note that you can add more text and images. There are lots of options for how you want to present the information here. Something else is, going back to your notebooks here, is you can also make stacks. So adding different notebooks under the same theme within a stack. So here, my trip plans, I have different trips that I have taken that are under this stack. So that could be a really good option if you're going to create many different notebooks for this class, to put them in a stack. So last thing we're going to go over is sharing or publishing a notebook. You can either share with specific individuals by inviting people by their email address, or publish to make it a public link. So let's go to a note and we can share. And we can create a shareable link. You can also invite people here. It's important to note that publishing your notebook does not give access to all notes in your account, but only that notebook. No one will be able to access your account. I will ask you to publish your DH project examples notebook and post it on your blog this week. So before I leave you today, I also want to present some directories of DH projects that are available online, which can be really helpful. Here are a few of the many that exist. In recent years, scholars have also started to compile lists of projects on specific topics, often from marginalized communities. So for example, DH projects relating to women or people of color. Through the creation of these lists, it helps to bring these projects together and also make them more visible and accessible to users. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.